J.D. Vance cleans Tiananmen Tim's clock. Oh, did he beat him good? Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends. Last night's vice presidential debate, it was almost as bad as the savage beatdown that Trump gave Joe Biden, Joey, in that infamous CNN debate on June 27th. Look, there's no question about it. Even CNN admitted J.D. Vance won. Even much of the liberal left-wing anti-Trump media had to concede that J.D. Vance last night put on a masterclass performance. He debated circles around Tampon Tim. Honestly, at times, it was embarrassing. It really was embarrassing. Look, let me just say this right out of the gate, because this needs to be said. J.D. Vance was polished. He was smooth. He was genteel. He was composed. He attacked Tim Walz. In fact, it was a very substantive policy debate. Overall, a positive debate in the sense of there were very few negative attacks. So, to me, I thought it was too heavy on policy at times. By the middle of the debate, it got a little bit boring, to be brutally honest. But look, let that go. That's nitpicking. That's quibbling. It was JD put on an absolutely superb first-class performance. He was ready. He was prepared. He's got great oratorical skills. He came in with facts, logic, evidence. He's clearly a very intelligent man, and he delivered it extremely well. He intellectually, he dismantled Tim Walz. Tiananmen Tim last night got an intellectual debating beatdown. There's no other way to put it. Now, Tim Walz as well self-imploded. I mean, to be fair, it's a combination of both. Tim Walz, while JD was gentlemanly, polished, obviously well-read, prepared, to me, a first-class debater. On the other hand, you had Tampon Tim. He stuttered. He lost his way. He was nervous. He had these beady eyes that, frankly, he looked a bit crazy at times. Other people were texting me throughout the debate saying, Jeff, doesn't Tim Walz remind you of Don Rickles? And I'm like, that's funny. He does remind me a little bit. With the eyes, the head going back and forth, his furiously writing notes. What the hell was he writing notes for the entire night? So he came across as buffoonish, a clown, out of his league, out of his depth. There's absolutely no question about it. Now, to compound things, Tiananmen Tim, this is him by his own. I'm just quoting you what he said about himself. He said that he's a knucklehead. He calls himself a knucklehead. He was caught lying red-handed last night about being in Hong Kong when the Tiananmen massacre took place in China in 1989. In fact, he was in Nebraska. He never was near China or in Hong Kong during the months of May and June when those events took place. So he was caught lying. I mean, and the way he handled it, I'm going to play the cuts. He lied and tried to lie some more, and it looked obvious that he was lying. He had almost a semi-meltdown on stage when he was asked about his lie. It was a very awkward, you want to talk about weird. The only person that came across as weird last night was, of course, Tiananmen Tim. And then the one that will haunt him and the Harris campaign all the way to November 5, that he's friends with school shooters. When he said that he's quote unquote friends with school shooters, my mouth dropped. I was like, nobody can be this stupid. Nobody can be this incompetent. Nobody can be this much of a bad debater. But that's Tiananmen Tim. Now, I could go on and on and on, and I will. We'll be talking about the debate, obviously, this morning. The other thing that emerged very clear last night was the moderators, both Nora O'Donnell and Margaret Brennan, two hardcore Democrat activist lefties, embarrassed themselves again. I'm watching this debate. It's 3-on-1 the entire night. In fact, the moderator said at the beginning that the rules were that they would not fact check the candidates. And what do you think they did? They broke their own rules and they were fact checking or trying to fact check J.D. Vance. And when J.D. Vance turned the tables on them, saying, don't fact check me, and he began to fact check them, they literally muted his microphone. They cut his microphone off. So that tells you everything about the fairness of the moderators. And even though it was 3-on-1, it didn't matter. As I wrote to Link, a big fan of the show, Lincoln, I said, Link, he beat J.D. Vance and he beat him good. But J.D. Vance beat Tim Walz and he beat the two moderators. It was 3-on-1 and he still beat them all. So again, the moderators made themselves part of the story. They disgraced themselves. And I've got to ask this question, really. It's like Lucy and Charlie Brown. How many times do you have to get shafted by the so-called mainstream media, the elite corporate media, the fake news media complex, before you finally learn your lesson? Don't agree to debates on their stations, on their channels. Don't let them moderate any more debates. How many times? I'm watching this whole debate and all they're asking about is climate change. That, in fact, was the second question. Trying to tie Hurricane Helene to climate change. They asked about gun control. They went on about abortion. They were going on about child care. They're going on about January 6th. They're going on about a threat to democracy. And even with a massive 3-on-1 advantage, J.D. Vance beat him again and again and again and again. And I am telling you, after last night, there are two things now that are, to me, indisputable. Absolutely indisputable. Number one, this media caricature, this Democrat media caricature of J.D. Vance as somehow being weird, as being this ogre, this right-wing wild man, this crazy lunatic, was absolutely destroyed. It was blown to smithereens last night. He came across as brilliant, composed, humble, a family man, a man who loves his children, who loves his state, who loves his country, a man who's very obviously deeply learned in policy, sharp as a tack, someone who's also very kind, very gentle, has a really good heart. There were moments where he even was telling Tim he felt sorry for his son having to witness a school shooting near a community center. He came across as a gracious, decent man. Again, as Grace said to me last night after the debate, you read the media portrait of him, and then you see the J.D. Vance that we saw for 90 minutes. You don't recognize the man in the media caricature, in the media portraits. It's like two different human beings. So that narrative is now gone. Number two, I think J.D. Vance clearly established himself as the heir apparent to MAGA. There's to me, no doubt about it. He defended Trump forcefully, effectively. He laid out the America First agenda and vision on borders, on immigration, on trade, on globalism, on family, on taxes, on foreign affairs, masterfully, absolutely masterfully. And you can see now he is going to be a phenomenal vice president who in 4 years, should Trump win, and I believe he now will win, without question, in November, J.D. Vance will carry the torch, the mantle of Trumpism and MAGA in 2028. So, after last night's debate, to me, what is now clear is that J.D. Vance stood head and shoulders above Tiananmen Tim. He has now blown up this narrative of him being this whack job, this right-wing, weird jihadist. That is gone. And JD now clearly is the heir apparent to Donald Trump in 4 years and clearly validated Trump's decision to pick him as his VP. As for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, Democrats have to be kicking themselves. This is who she picked? This buffoon? This liar? This moron? He disgraced himself. He disgraced Kamala. He disgraced their campaign. Trump just won the election last night. Yeah, baby. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's how it's done. 6:20 here on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, people are asking me, Jeff, how are you feeling after last night? I'm feeling great. Honestly, I don't know how you are, but I'm feeling great. When I saw all those panelists on This is CNN, they're like, oh, no, JD won. I mean, one after another. They're like, boy, no, he outclassed them. I mean, the recriminations. Waltz wasn't prepared. What was Waltz doing on that stage all night? I mean, when your own allies are saying you suck, it was a bad night. Let's put it that way. Okay, I'm getting a lot of reaction on the text line, emails, messenger. Let me just play a few cuts, and then I promise I'm going to go to the phones. Couple lines are open if you want to jump on. 617-266-6868 is the number. Did you watch last night's debate? And I'm just curious, what did you make of last night's debate? Who do you think won? Who do you think lost? Most people, it's almost a consensus, but I'm just curious. They say J.D. Vance won. The question is, by how much? Was this a knockout? Was it he won on points, on style, on substance? For example, we're going to have Dr. Grace on today at 9:00. She kind of wishes that that J.D. was more aggressive last night. I'm just going to, I'm just setting it up for you at 9:00 that he should have gone even harder after Harris, harder after Waltz, harder after his on his ties to communist China, that he watched Minneapolis burn and appeased Black Lives Matter. You're going to hear her. I mean, I don't want to speak for her, but she's saying, look, that JD should have even gone after him harder and left some things on the table he shouldn't have left on the table. So she feels that he won, no question, but that it wasn't the knockout that we were all hoping and praying for. What do you think? Agree? Disagree? Was JD too genteel? Was he too gentlemanly at times? Would you have liked him to get a little rougher and go more for the jugular? Or do you think he did it his way? He's just not that kind of a guy. He's Midwest nice. He did it intellectually. He did it through policy. He did it through oratory. He was factual, logical, articulate, really, I got to say, intellectually very nimble. And Waltz, at times, I'm telling you, looked like he got hit by a tsunami. His eyes, his face, like a fighter in a ring who's just getting like left, right, left, right, left, right. And his head is just going back and forth. He's just intellectually getting pummeled. And you can see he was never comfortable the entire night because he realized from the beginning He's out of his league and out of his depth. So did you watch last night's debate? What did you make of JD's performance? And did it move the needle? That's another thing I think we need to. Now, you could win the debate, but did it win any votes or more votes for Trump and for Vance? I'm just curious. What say you? 617-266-6868 is the number. From the beginning, it was a bad night for Waltz. You want to talk about a word salad? This was the opening question and his opening answer. So they ask about Hurricane Helene. They ask about the nearly 200 ballistic missiles that Iran launched on Israel yesterday. Israel expanding the ground war now into Lebanon. So you've got chaos at home and you've got a major war now in the Middle East. And this, in other words, what do you make of it? And why are you saying Harris is better to handle this situation than Trump? Basically, that was the question. And listen to Tiananmen Tim's response. This was literally his opening statement. Roll cut one. Mike.
Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you. And thank you for those joining at home tonight. Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But the expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there. You saw it experienced today, where along with our Israeli partners and our coalition, able to stop the incoming attack. But what's fundamental here is that steady leadership is going to matter.
Okay, fundamental. Israel and its proxies are expanding? What? And then he kept confusing Israel with Iran. I mean, the moment I heard that, I'm like, he doesn't belong on the debate stage. Ay, ay, ay. And this set the tone for the entire debate. He stuttered. He mumbled. He was confused. He was confusing. It was a horrible night. It was a horrible night for Tiananmen Tim, for Kamala Harris, and a great night for Vance and Trump. Agree, disagree. WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, listen now to Waltz, because this set the tone for the entire debate. So they're asked about Iran launching, 181 ballistic missiles, and Israel pretty much brilliantly, in fact, yesterday, with the Iron Dome and their Arrow 3 anti-missile systems, shooting almost all of them out of the sky. And Iran now is vowing more ballistic missile attacks. Israel has now expanded its ground war in Lebanon. They're pouring more Israeli troops. We are sending more troops to the Middle East. We're sending now even more naval assets. So the situation in the Middle East now is blowing up in front of our eyes. All of this under the Harris-Biden administration. Never mind the disaster that's unfolding with Hurricane Helene. So you've got Waltz now with that word salad. Makes no sense. But then he tried to blame everything on Trump. That was his strategy for 90 minutes. No matter what the question, blame Trump. Just turn everything and hang it around Trump's neck. So here he is saying, oh, no, hey, things are so much better under Harris and Biden. If we have Trump back in office, well, listen to Tim Waltz. Roll cut 1B. Mike.
What we've seen out of Vice President Harris is we've seen steady leadership. We've seen a calmness that is able to draw on the coalitions to bring them together. Understanding that our allies matter. When our allies see Donald Trump turn towards Vladimir Putin, turn towards North Korea, when we start to see that type of fickleness around holding the coalitions together, we will stay committed. And as the vice president said today we will protect our forces and our allied forces, and there will be consequences.
Okay, so he's not really making that much sense, but basically that Trump is an appeaser, and he appeased North Korea, and he appeased Putin, but Kamala, she stands strong. Listen now to JD's response. It was only 10 seconds, because 10 seconds is all JD needed. Listen now to this. It was brilliant. Boom, baby. Drop the mic. Roll, cut, 2. Mike.
When was the last time, I'm 40 years old, when was the last time that an American president didn't have a major conflict break out? The only answer is during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president.
That's it. I mean, you could tell on Tiananmen Tim's face. It was like, oh. It was like, oh. Like, boom. I mean, that's what it was. So, my guy's incompetent. My guy's an appeaser. My guy's this. My guy's that. For 4 years, we had peace in Ukraine, peace in Russia, peace in Israel, peace in the Middle East, peace with China, peace all over the world. Under your leadership, missiles and rockets are flying everywhere. And you're saying my guy's the problem? It was a masterclass. There's just no other way to put it. He beat him, and this was all night, again and again and again. And I just want to say one final thing before I go to the phone lines. What impressed me the most, he was extremely well prepared. He's very intelligent. But notice the way he answered questions. He was surgical, almost like laser precision. He's got a first-rate mind. You can see that. And what he also showed last night is he's got a really good heart. When he talked about his mom battling addiction and how he suffered as a young boy, and he doesn't want to see other children suffer with parents from fentanyl or the opiates that are coming in through our southern border. When he talked about how drugs and illegal immigration have ravaged his communities that he grew up in. And he said, we've got to end this carnage. And it's time to put America and American citizens first. And the way he spoke from the heart with humility, he wasn't arrogant. He was confident, but he was comfortable in his confidence. And he wasn't arrogant. He wasn't overbearing. You can see he's really a wonderful man. And the media owes him an apology because they've painted him into this monster. Notice, nothing about the couches. Notice, Tiananmen Tim couldn't back up his talk about, the couches with JD and what he's doing with the couches and this guy's a sick pervert and none of this. Because he went up against an intellectual titan last night. And I got to tell you, Donald Trump apparently was extremely happy with JD's performance. He should be. And honestly, to Donald Trump, you should also take a bow because you picked the right man to be your number 2. And that's what I saw last night. Agree, disagree, lines are jammed. Betty in Quincy, you're going to kick us off, Betty. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi,
Wow. Jeff, what a class act. I mean, game, set, match. Not to get overconfident, but a win is a win is a win. And Lord knows we could all use a win, with all the bold-faced lying, cheating, and stealing in our American elections today. Vance gave all of us in Kuhner country, MAGA country, along with the undecided, a breath of fresh air, a big sigh of relief, and hope for our future, Jeff. He's the guy next door that we all want in the White House, along with, our cookie commander-in-chief, Donald J. Trump. I think they're going to be unstoppable. We may even get tired of winning, Jeff. We're going to win so much with this guy. What a class act.
Betty, I got to ask you this because you really got your feet on the ground. Your eyes and ears are everywhere. You talk, you deal with so many people. I've got to ask you, when you looked at, because the media and Waltz, remember, it was Waltz that started this whole thing that J.D. Vance is weird. And he smeared him with this, implying, he has sex with a couch. It was really disgusting. Okay. So, this is how he was painting him as this kind of redneck hillbilly, he has sex with his cousins? He has sex with a couch? He drinks Mountain Dew, Diet Mountain Dew? This guy's a weirdo. So Waltz launched these vicious, vicious defamatory attacks on him. After last night, 90 minutes, you look at JD, you look at Waltz. In all honesty, who's weird and who's not weird? Who came across to you as the weirdo among the two?
Well, it was clear to see. I mean, I don't know. I kind of felt bad for him at times, but this is what weirdos do. They're doing the things that they're accusing you of. I was watching it, and right out of the gate, I'm like, okay, what is he doing? Every time Vance would speak, he turned to him and looked at him like he was nervous. His eyes were twitching. He was writing. I just really want to see what the hell he was writing on that card. The guy was so out of his sneakers because you know what? This is what people do when they're weird. They're out of control. They're so insecure with themselves. It's like they have to put that out there. The guy, talk about weird. Anybody who's watching that's like, oh, God. All right, back to the drawing board. What the hell are we doing? No, it's terrible. And, to put all that stuff about Vance, look at this guy. What an American hero. What an American dream. And you know what? Shame on all of them for taking out or trying to take out these true patriots that we need on our side that are going to make America great again, that love our country, fought for our country. Shame on all of them. And I'm glad that America got to see just the type of weirdo that J.D. Vance is. The weirdo with love in his heart, love for his community, love for his country, love for his neighbor. And like you said, what a gentle guy. He was so authentic and so, even nice. He extended himself and, to Waltz several times because Waltz can't do it for himself. He can't. He needs everybody to be on his team. They don't know what it's like to be authentic, Jeff, because they can't stand on their own 2 feet.
Bingo.
They need everybody to lift them up.
Bingo. You nailed it. Betty, as always, thank you very much for that call. Waltz was embarrassed last night. He was politically, intellectually humiliated by J.D. Vance. I mean, J.D. Vance, look, he debated circles around him. And what you saw was an all-American man. That's what J.D. Vance is. He's an all-American patriot from the heartland. And that resonated loud and clear. There was only one weirdo on that stage, and that was Tiananmen Tim. You're right. He's writing. I don't know what the hell he's writing. He's writing furiously. His head is bobbling back and forth. Have you see that? His head back and forth, back and forth. His eyes. I thought his eyes were going to pop out of his skull. His face is twitching. I mean, I just look at him. I go, are you serious? This is who you picked? This is your pick to be your successor, or should something happen to you if you're in the White House? Ay, ay, ay. John in Dunstable. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Jeff, thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure.
J.D. Vance is an American hero, and I watched the debate, Jeff. The guy's the man. He is next to Trump, and if a facial expert would look at Waltz, I guarantee you, Jeff, that he's gonna come out as one of the biggest con artists. I can see it, Jeff. That man is nothing.
He's a fraud. He's a fraud. You're dead on. And look, honestly, he's more than a fraud. This is their problem. He came across as a clown, as a freak, and as a buffoon. And that's who Kamala picked. Last night was a disaster. 9 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is the line. This is the line. I'm going to play this line all morning. I'm going to play it at least once an hour, and I'll tell you why. Because this is the line that's going to bury Tim Waltz and Kamala Harris. And that it actually came out of his mouth is, to me, unbelievable. It is one of the biggest gaffes in debate history. And that's why, to me, this is up there with Joe Biden's performance on CNN, June 27th. It was an unmitigated disaster. Absolute disaster. Listen now to Tiananmen Tim. This is Tampon Tim Waltz. Talking about school shootings, talking about the need for gun control, and then this came out of his mouth. Roll cut 22, Mike.
I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time.
I mean, I'm sorry, as Bugs Bunny would say, what a maroon. You've become friends with school shooters? Democrats last night said it was a horrible night. They couldn't believe the stuff that came out of his mouth. And you look, can you imagine? And look, after this is what Mike said to me this morning at our pre-show meeting. He goes, and you know the frightening thing is? That the polls still show it's a close race. Can you imagine with these two imbeciles? I don't know who's stupider, really. Kamala, to me, you want to know the ultimate poll question? Who's stupider? Seriously, Kamala or Tim Waltz? Comrade Kamala or Tiananmen Tim? Huh? You want to pull your hair out? Oh, geez, well, that's Kamala. No, I got to go with what that? It's probably Kamala. The poll question of the day. Who is stupider? A, Comrade Kamala. B, Tiananmen Tim. The audience would get, Jeff, I can't answer. I could go either way. I don't know what to do. My insides are being torn up over this. I mean, it was a horrible, horrible performance. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Okay, very quickly. Lot of reaction from Kuhner Country. This is Mark on Messenger. Jeff, Tampon Tim at times looked like a deer in the headlights. And J.D. Vance, on the other hand, like a great white shark. He smelled the blood in the water and he went in for the kill. Also, J.D. did not let the moderators get the best of him. In fact, he turned the tables on them. It was a debate masterpiece. P.S. I think Timmy needed a tampon after that mess last night. I mean, holy shamoly. That's all I got to say. Okay. This is from Marianne. Marianne makes a really good point. Jeff, the fact that the Democrats think that J.D. is the weird one and not Waltz tells me all I need to know about Democrats. And let me add another point, Jeff. J.D. Vance is the one that went into that Pittsburgh restaurant and was refused service and still paid for everybody's bill and tipped the staff. Waltz goes to a college football game and gets booed and flips the fans the bird. What else do people need to know? Bingo. Bingo. Absolutely. Bingo. Okay. And let me just go one more and then go right back to the phone lines. This is from Claire. This is what Claire wrote. Sorry, my bad. This is from, Elizabeth. My bad. This is from Elizabeth. Jeff, J.D. Vance won the debate last night handily. He was confident without being arrogant, comfortable in his confidence. He would not be derailed when the fact-checking happened and flipped it to his advantage. Waltz did a great imitation of a bobblehead. His endless head nodding when Vance was speaking got to be annoying. You're dead on, Elizabeth. You are completely correct. Lisa, Jeff, Tim Waltz was writing notes to himself. That's why he was writing so furiously, saying, help, get me out of here. Mike in Florida. Thanks for holding, Mike, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
After last night, Mike, I'm feeling really good. And by the way, so is the Trump campaign. They could not have been happier with last night's debate performance.
I'm Terry this morning here from the Gulf Coast of Florida, which we're in good shape, thank heaven. As former military, J.D. Vance is groomed to have respect, and his candor showed last night. It showed in his responses and how he held himself, and I'm, if I can say it, damn proud of him for his grooming in the United States military. It came across last night that he was cool, calm, collected, and most of all, educated and prepared. And I think that showed, and the contrast is that, the opponent was not prepared, and I don't think he was groomed in the same way, and I hope people see the contrast the same way that I do.
It was an American hero versus a buffoon. Mike, yes, really, Mike, I'm telling you, that's what it was. That's really what it was. Look, if I could nitpick, and this is nitpicking, all right? Do I wish he would have, gone on about Tim Walz's ties to communist China? Yes. Do I wish, at least once, turn to him and say, you watched your biggest city burn to the ground because of BLM, and you did nothing. In fact, you cheered him on. I mean, there was a couple times where I really wish, just smack that arrogant, verbally, smack him in the face, that bobbling head of his. But look, I agree with Mike. That's nitpicking. Okay. To be honest, you're right. He was so well prepared, so cool, so calm. You could tell he was so focused on the mission at hand, which is, I'm not going to let the moderators get to me. I'm going to stay focused. I'm going to stay like a laser. I'm going to accomplish my mission. And I got to say this, Mike, that he was so well prepared, that he took it so seriously, showed a tremendous respect to the American people. Not just for the debate, but to the voters. Look, I'm giving this everything I have. And you're going to have someone in the White House who is going to know every aspect of policy and who's going to fight for you, for your family, for your community, for your state, for your country, for your values, for your interests. We are going to finally start to put America and American citizens first. Mike, honestly, I think a political star was born last night. I mean, I know he was rising before, but after last night, in fact, I want to ask you, in your view, do you now believe, is he the heir to Trump? Is he now the heir to MAGA? Is he the prince to the Trump king? I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, I'm a Floridian, so I'm a DeSantis guy, but I think JD indeed is, has flown the nest here, is going to be a rising star indeed. But again, as former military, just want to say that he's groomed properly. He didn't sleep his way to the top. Let me say that.
Excellent. Well put. Really well put. Mike, thank you very much for that call. You can see that. The substance was there. Marine, served in the military, worked his way through college, Ivy League educated, literally got has had such good grades, got into Yale Law, graduated from Yale Law, very successful in the private sector. By the way, best-selling writer, Hillbilly Elegy, one of the most beautiful, powerful books you're ever going to read on the plight of Appalachia, or Appalachia, as he calls it, which I guess is the better way to call it. Anyway, tomato. Anyway, the plight of Appalachia. You can just see the man is well-rounded. He's not a career politician. He speaks from the heart. He's an all-American hero. I couldn't have been prouder of him and Trump, frankly. Heather in Maine. Thanks for holding, Heather, and welcome.
Having me.
Heather, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Very, very good.
Good. God bless my husband. He is in Georgia right now. He's a lineman, so he's trying to get that power on. He did agree with you. It's very poorly organized. But anyway, last night.
Our thoughts and prayers are with him, Heather. I hope he comes home safe.
Thank you very much. He will. So a couple of things that I noticed last night. So Waltz, I felt like he was setting up the seal of the election at the end of the night when he was talking about Trump denying the election results in 2020. That scared me a little bit. I got to meet JD in January, and I instantly thought this guy is definitely going to be the president. I think he's a determined visionary because of where he comes from. And he never lost sight of his goals as a person, I think. And, you know, he's driven, he's presidential, he's humble, he's got charisma. He's the yin and yang. You know, him and Trump are yin and yang. They're perfect together. They complement each other. So I'm super happy that he picked him. I do wish that he brought up the 425,000 convicted criminals that have been released since Kamala took office. And I do wish he brought up voter ID. So
I agree. No, Heather, I agree. Again, I'm nitpicking. We're all nitpicking now because it really was a phenomenal performance. But I thought there were a couple of times I'm like, you left some stuff on the table, and I agree with you. I think he could have done more with voter ID. I think he could have done more with election fraud. And, on the 13,000 murderers, convicted murderers, 16,000 convicted rapists, over 425,000 convicted criminals that are roaming our country free, that Kamala Harris allowed into our country. To me, I figured no matter what, you got to get that in there. So I agree with you, Heather. I thought there were a couple of times where if I'm going to criticize him, he could be even more aggressive. Maybe he's a little too genteel, a little too polished, a little too high-minded. But I go back to what you said earlier, and this is what I kept thinking last night. You almost read my mind. Presidential. He truly is. He's charismatic. He's humble. But there's something about him. There's an aura. He is presidential. You nailed it. And I thought the exact same thing. I said, you know what? It really is a yin and a yang. They fill gaps. You can see. Can you imagine Trump and JD in the White House, in the Oval Office? I mean, they literally complement each other. It's like they're temperamentally, they're polar opposites. But it's like two wings of a plane. You can see that. Trump is aggressive, hard-charging, tough as nails, a brawler, will take them all on, a man of guts and courage. And then you've got JD, who, can put policy meat on everything that Trump wants to do and give it nice oratory and can really package and present it and defend it to the American people in such an articulate, compelling way. I said, it's like the dynamic duo. There's like an unbeatable team. And all I kept thinking last night was, please just get him into the White House. Oh my God, they'll solve all our problems in 4 years. And then I'm thinking, I don't want to get greedy, but can you imagine Trump, JD for 4 years? And then, continuing MAGA for another 8 under JD, probably with Ron DeSantis or whoever. In 12 years, our country will be back to they could literally make us a superpower again in 12 years. As somebody said on social media last night, Trump's 4 years will set the foundation, and then JD's 8 years can be the church upon that foundation for a true political, moral, cultural revival and renewal of the United States. Look, I think it's a magic ticket. I think it's a perfect ticket. And all I kept saying is this. Look, remember, the most important decision, and you tell me if you agree or disagree, Heather, the most important decision that a presidential candidate makes is his VP pick. That's the most important decision. In other words, God forbid, if something happens to me if I'm president, who will be my replacement? Who's going to be my right hand? Who's going to be my top advisor? It's your number one, it's your number one hire is your VP pick. Well, there it is last night. look at JD, look at what Trump, look at who Trump picked, and look at that buffoon. That stuttering, seriously, a neurotic, a freak show of a clown who couldn't give a straight answer the entire night, whose eyes kept shifting, whose head kept bobbling, and who it was lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. And I said, this is who Kamala picked? Of all the Democrat governors she could have picked from, this is the clown that she chose? This empty suit? Heather, if the American people don't vote Trump-Vance, I don't know what to tell you. You know, I mean, you can lead the horse to water. You can't have the horse drink the water. After last night, it should be no doubt Trump-Vance 2024. What say you?
I say that Trump probably learned a really valuable lesson with Pence, what a traitor he was. And I think that it was just so powerful that he picked JD the week that somebody tried to assassinate him, knowing that, oh my goodness, if something happens to me, I have to have somebody that can handle this. And I felt like all the other candidates were too weak. He needed JD. He needed somebody like JD to carry the torch for him if something does happen.
Amen. Couldn't have said it better myself. Heather, as always, thank you very much for that call. And that was the thing I admired most about JD last night. You know, notice he always had Trump's back. It didn't matter. He defended Trump. In some ways, honestly, almost better than Trump defended himself. I mean, I'm like, whoa, that's good. You know, so he had Trump's back the entire night, and he kept turning it on Kamala again and again and again. She says she wants to stop inflation. Why didn't she do it? Waltz could never answer that. Well, no, higher grocery prices happened under Kamala, higher food under Kamala, higher gas under Kamala, higher home and rent prices under Kamala. And you had, as he put it, you had 1,400 days, day one, to fix it. So don't tell me you're going to fix it day one in January if you win. You had 1,400 days, day one, and you're the one that caused this mess. And he kept repeating that message over and over and over. And you can see every time he did it, it's like he buried Waltz 1 foot further into the ground. Because Waltz had no comeback, no rebuttal, because there is none. Again, it was a masterclass. Larry in Leominster. Thanks for holding, Larry, and welcome.
Jeff, let me get this right out. Pull the Band-Aid off. I had to agree with Walls 100%. He is a knucklehead. Oh, my God, dude. Really quick, 20 years ago, I saw the infamous Janet Jackson wardrobe malfunction, and I was so stunned stupid. I'm like, did I just see what I think I saw? And I had friends with me, and they were arguing with each other, and they didn't see it, and they didn't believe me. And then a friend called up and said, did I just see that? So last night I'm watching that, and he goes, I made friends with school shooters. I'm like, I did not just hear that. And then a good friend of mine, also a Kuhner fan, Michael, best auto body guy in the state, he's texting me. He goes, did he just say what I think he just said? I'm like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, you heard it too. All right. So, Jeff, I give JD strong B plus, A minus. There's a couple of things that I was frustrated with, and kind of his fault, kind of not. First, it's bad enough when you have Walls lie. But when Nora O'Donnell, was that her name?
Yeah, Nora O'Donnell, when they were
right.
trying to fact check him, and they were fact checking. Is that what you're talking about, Larry? And they literally were fact checking the truth. Is that what you? And then they cut off his mic. Is that the one you're talking about, Larry?
No, actually, I'm actually talking about. She comes in right off with a lie. She goes, they started talking about school violence, school shooting, and they go. She said, school or gun deaths are the number one. Gun violence is the number one cause of death in kids and teens. And I'm screaming at the TV. I'm like, that's an outright lie, right? it's car accidents. How they get to that number, Jeff, really quick, is they don't count birth to 1 year old, and then they add 18 and 19 years olds to that figure. That's that lies, damn lies, and statistics. The second thing I was upset with is Walz kept goading JD with the sign the bill on the border bill. I wish JD would have turned and said, that bill allows 5,000 illegals a day to come in. That's 1.875 million illegals a day. Of course we kill that bill. It was an outrage. Other than that, you're right. He wiped the floor with them. And I don't want to, I respectfully disagree with your wife, Grace. JD was on a mission last night, and he did it to perfection. He had to kill the persona that he was a real jerk, an evil person. So as much as we wanted him to, like, trounce and do all this stuff, he was smooth, polished, and nice. And it drove them crazy because they wanted him to go like evil JD, like evil Trump. They were hoping he could do that so they could paint that picture. And he wouldn't let him do it. No matter how many missed opportunities there were to be aggressive, he was on a mission to not be aggressive.
Interesting.
In my opinion.
Interesting. I didn't look at it that way. Interesting. Larry, as always, thank you very much for your call. Okay, so let me ask you, what did you watch the debate last night? What did you think? I think Larry's being a little bit of a harsh grader. Larry, if I can say that. B plus, A minus, Larry, come on. I'm happy you weren't my teacher. No, I think it was an A. To me, it was an A performance. Agree, disagree. RKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, it was an absolute horrible night for Tampon Tim and the Democrats and Kamala Harris and her campaign when the fake news media is talking about Iran's missile strikes on Israel, the longshoreman strike, the cleanup after Hurricane Helene. They're touching on the debate, but you can tell they want to move quickly. They want to turn this into a 24-hour story because what you saw last night was J.D. Vance annihilate Tampon Tim. He destroyed Tim Walz for 90 minutes on issue after issue after issue. And what was most shocking of all was how Walz imploded, saying that he's friends with school shooters, called himself a knucklehead, was caught openly lying about that he was in Hong Kong during the time of the Tiananmen Square massacre, when, of course, he was in Nebraska. The whole time he was in Nebraska. And when he was fact-checked on that and confronted, he almost had a meltdown right there on stage. I mean, it went on and on and on. And you can see, as many of you are saying, Jeff, let me tell you why he was writing so furiously on those notepads. It was, Kamala, please get me the hell out of here. I can't take the pressure. I'm cracking up. Get me out. That's what he was writing on those pads the whole night. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Mary in Saugus. Thanks for holding, Mary, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. My first time calling.
Welcome. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I watched the debate, and what I noticed right away is when J.D. Vance was talking, he looked directly into the camera at everybody watching the debate. When Tim Walz was talking, he was talking to the moderators. Did you see that? He wasn't looking at you did?
He kept looking at the moderators, and then the other bizarre thing, Mary, did you notice his eyes kept shifting back and forth, and his odd facial expressions? And I'm not trying to make fun of the guy, really. His head is like a bobblehead. It's just his head movements it was weird. And then he's listening, and then you can, I mean, I'm not trying to be insulting, but you can see that Vance's IQ is so much higher than that of Tiananmen Tim. So, for example, there was one point where Vance was talking about improving childcare access for families and women and working moms. And he's saying, we can make a real flexible, a lot of choice, a lot of flexible options. There's so many ways or creative ways we can do this. And he's giving, like point after point. And Waltz is nodding his head up and down, and with his eyes almost like, wow. When you're impressed with somebody, like, wow, that's really smart. Like, wow. He kept doing that the whole night. So his body language, his facial expressions were like, well, I agree with him. Or like, why didn't I think of that? Or, wow, that's really brilliant. And then, remember, he kept calling him weird. He kept saying that this guy's some kind of a right-wing monster. But then throughout the entire debate, because he was getting beaten up so badly by JD, he's like, oh no, JD's a very serious man. Oh no, I agree with JD on so many issues. Oh no, JD clearly is, he's like constantly praising JD Vance to try to, mitigate the sting of blow after blow. Well, is he a weirdo or is he not a weirdo? Is he a right-wing extremist or is he not a right-wing extremist? How could you call him a right-wing extremist now when the whole night he kept saying, I agree with much of what JD said? Because JD was just debating circles around him on policy. It was like a child versus an adult. I mean, really, it was, if this was a fight, Mary, they would have stopped it after the second round. Within 15 minutes of the debate, no more, stop, end this thing. And it went on and on and on. And you can see it on Waltz's face. He just kept withering the whole night. What say you, Mary?
He looks like a deer caught in the headlights most of the time. Oh no.
Well said.
Yep. May I say one more thing?
Yes, go ahead.
I saw somebody on TV this morning, I think it was Joe Concha, who said that debate was like a hockey game, and there was 3 against 1, and J.D. Vance got every goal. I thought it was great.
No, I agree with you. It was 3-on-1, and he beat all 3 of them. That's what made. See, that's why. Look, I respect Larry a lot. He's a veteran. He served our country. Air Force guy. He's always protecting me at every rally I do, and he's very smart and he's a very astute observer. I think B+, A-. I think he's being a little bit harsh, and I understand his points. I get it, but look, it's easy to criticize or nitpick. He was in the lion's den. It wasn't a fair fight. It wasn't 1-on-1. It was 2 moderators and Waltz ganging up on JD. And he beat one, and then he beat the other, and then he beat the other. And he kept doing it again and again and again. I mean, I'm sorry. I got to tip my hat off. The pressure was on, and JD delivered. And I believe he delivered big. Agree, disagree, all of your calls next. 7:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, liberalism's worst nightmare, baby. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Mike off air was telling me in my ear, Jeff, you're saying Larry may be too tough a grader. Do you ever think maybe you're too easy of a grader? All right, so I think Mike is, with Larry. Saying maybe JD should have landed a few more blows last night. 617-266-6868. Speaking of Larry, this is what he just messaged me on Messenger. Jeff, Charlie Kirk said it best. JD is doing great against 3 women. I mean, he really... That's actually very funny. It was... he took on Margaret Brennan. He took on Nora O'Donnell. And boy, did he certainly take on Tiananmen Tim. Now, speaking of Tiananmen Tim, this was one of the pivotal moments of last night's debate. And again, I don't know how Waltz or frankly the Harris-Waltz campaign recovers from this. So NPR, Yes, you heard that correctly. Far left NPR actually uncovered that Waltz, he's famously been to China 30 times. And as you know, he's often praised Mao, one of the greatest, most vicious mass murderers of the 20th century. Okay, the dictator who founded the Chinese communist regime. Well, Waltz has repeatedly claimed, in fact, he even did it when he was in Congress, but he's done it on radio interviews, that he was in Hong Kong during the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre, basically in May and June, and that he was there for months, and that he saw what a crackdown on democracy looks like, and that's why he's standing up against Donald Trump. Except there's one problem. As local contemporaneous news reports show, Tim Waltz in May, in June, in July, in August of 1989. So I'm talking now 2 months after Tiananmen Square. He was in Nebraska. He was serving in the National Guard. He was in Alliance, Nebraska. And he was doing inspections on stockpiles of weapons. That's why they have all these news reports and photos of him. So the whole time Tiananmen was happening, and months afterwards, he wasn't in Hong Kong. He wasn't even in Asia. Hell, he wasn't even in the Pacific Ocean. He was in Nebraska. So it was the one time that the moderators, because it was NPR, it's an NPR story, it's a far left story. So Margaret Brennan says, well, there is this story, Tim Waltz. You've been saying repeatedly you were in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square massacre. But how do you explain the discrepancy, as she put it, of all these news reports that no, there's you with your buddies, National Guard, and you're in Nebraska? Listen now to this. Roll cut 3. You want to talk about lying, dissembling, and a word salad? Listen to this. Roll cut 3. Mike.
Public radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn.
That's not the issue, whether you went to China or not. The issue is you lied. You said you were there in May and June in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square massacre. You were not. You were in Nebraska. You lied. Now, listen to, now, here's the point. This was unbelievable. That, and I'm friends with school shooters, where he says, hey, look, I'm a knucklehead. That's what he says. Well, look, I don't know. Maybe I got things mixed up. I'm a knucklehead, i.e., I'm stupid. Roll cut 3A. Here it comes. Mike.
Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything. Many times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric. But being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China.
So what he's really trying to say is, Look, he's basically saying it. I'm a BSer. I get caught up in my own rhetoric. Like, I get in front of a camera or I get in front of a microphone and I just start, I start bullcrapping. You know what I really want to say? I can't help myself. I just keep making stuff up. And people know I'm a knucklehead. That means I'm an idiot. People just know that about me. But, I've been to China. Now, who brags about going to China? Okay, but let that go. Then, listen to this. It gets even worse. Listen now to this. He tries to, so he's caught lying, blatantly lying, calls himself an idiot and stupid, and basically says, I lied. That's, I can't help myself. I'm a liar. But then tries to turn it on Trump. Listen to this. Roll cut 3B. Mike.
Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID, and I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community, and then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
In other words, I'm a hero for lying. Yeah, I lied, but I'm a hero. Now, by the way, when does Trump praise China? Like, notice how they just make stuff up. And this so-called, he lost the trade war with China. No, he didn't. Ask the communist Chinese. They'll tell you we won that trade war under Trump. In fact, it was the Chinese who signed the terms of surrender and agreed to all these packages of tariffs that, by the way, the Biden administration has kept in. So what losing trade war? Okay, again, more lies. Now, to give Margaret Brennan her due, she was a horrible moderator. But the elephant in the room, you haven't answered the question. It's been 2 minutes of blah, 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 blah. How do you explain the discrepancy? She says, look, I'm sorry, I got to follow up. You said you were in Asia. You were not in Hong Kong. You were in Nebraska. How do you explain that? And this was the weirdest moment of the entire debate. His face froze. His mouth locked. I thought his eyes were going to pop out of his skull. And you can tell he was like frozen. He was just literally frozen. He did not expect her to. He thought he was just going to BS his way for 2 minutes. And then this came out of his mouth. Roll cut 3C. Mike.
The question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Thank you, Governor.
Now, notice something else. Okay, besides, this was an embarrassing gaffe. Okay, again, he came across as an idiot. But notice, he learned a lot about governance from going to China repeatedly. A lot of people missed that last night. They went on about, my God, look how he froze. Look how it was a ridiculous answer. I mean, look, even CNN panned him. Everybody was like, he lied and he got caught lying and he had no answer for his lies. But think about what he just admitted to. First of all, he went to communist China 30 times after the Tiananmen Square massacre. Who the hell goes to China 30 times after they slaughter their own people and impose this brutal dictatorship? But then he says, and going there, oh my God, I learned so much. Really? What? How to do a lockdown during COVID? How to order the National Guard to fire paintballs at your fellow citizens if they're violating your curfew?
I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time.
That's going to go down in history. I'm telling you, what a, oh man, I'm friends with school shooters. Okay, Tiananmen Tim. 7:50 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is a really hilarious text. By the way, you can text us 70470. 70470. This is from 617. And it's pictures with chatter right next to it. So there's a picture of Obama, and beside it says, I need a VP dumber than me. And of course, underneath it is Joe Biden. And then right beside him, it says, I need a VP dumber than me. And then, of course, under him is a picture of Kamala. And written beside her is, quote, I need a VP dumber than me. And underneath her is a picture of Tampon Tim Walz. And then right underneath that is Waltz, quote, I've become friends with school shooters. I mean, this may be the all-time record in stupidity. Honestly, the gold medal. Okay, this is another 617. Jeff, last night, my phone was getting lots of texts from people saying how blatantly biased the CBS moderators were. You think? I was amazed myself. If you noticed, whenever JD said something and seemed to be doing well, the moderator would say, quote, Governor Waltz, do you want to respond to these accusations, unquote, as if JD had lied. But when Waltz said something, the moderator would ask JD, quote, Governor Waltz just made the point as if it was a fact. What do you have to say, Senator? I noticed that as well. They kept implying the entire night that everything out of Vance's mouth was a lie and everything Tiananmen Tim said was true. Absolutely dead on. This is from Montreal, Canada, 514. Jeff, and in fact, a friend of ours, Valia, texted me this. Jeff, at one point during the debate, I thought Waltz was going to end up endorsing Vance. One more, and then I want to go to the phone lines. And this one, this is unbelievable. I mean, I believe this person, but what I mean is, it just, you can't wrap your mind around this. So it is from 781. Jeff, you know that as a true conservative, I try to stay close to my friends and family who are, for a lack of a better word, propagandized and low information people. So I checked in with them this morning, and they believed that Tampon Tim won the debate, and won the debate hands down. Our only hope is that last night's debate did move the needle for independence and those on the fence, those voters, and that the evil Democrats can't steal enough votes. That's our only prayer out of this. Who the hell thought Waltz won the debate last night? I mean, I can play you the cuts. Even CNN said he lost. Even the New York Times said that Vance took him to the cleaners and beat him again and again. Who the heck? I want to throw this open. Really. If you honestly think, I don't mean to troll the show or, to make a stupid comment just to get on the air. Seriously, I want to invite someone to call into the show who honestly watched the full debate and thought that Tiananmen Tim, that Tim Waltz actually won the debate, and not just won it, but won it hands down, as 781 put it. Because we're living in different universes. 617-266-6868. Donald in Raynham. Thanks for holding, Donald, and welcome.
Mr. Kuhner, what a great morning it is.
It is, Donald.
I have been pacing my living room floor since 5:45 this morning waiting for you. Because I'll tell you, I listened for the first time to that debate last night, and I was fascinated. That guy he's a crackerjack. He knows his mannerism. Vance is the man. And as far as I'm concerned, for the next 16 years, we could be good, doing great. A lot. I am fascinated by, to the people of Massachusetts that are Democrats, you should be getting in line down at your town hall, city hall, and changing your selection. That's all I have to say on that one. On another one, Donald Trump Jr. needs a tip of the hat and a big thank you for saying, hey, Dad, you got to interview this fella.
Oh,
what do you think?
That's an excellent point, because it was Don Jr. that really, went to his father and said, Dad, look, I know you're looking at Rubio, and I know you're looking at some other people on that short list, but this is the guy. I found the guy. I become friends. Remember, they became friends, he and J.D. Vance. And, and Trump, didn't really know J.D., but Don Jr. did. And the more time they spent together, A, they became very good friends, but B, Don Jr. was like, this is my dad's successor. Like, this is his vice president. He's got the whole package. This is the guy. And I know for a fact, he was like, come on, Dad, listen, no, Dad, please, Dad, please trust me when I tell you this. Just have lunch with the guy. I'm not asking you to do anything. Don't make a decision. I'm not asking you to do anything rash. Just give this guy an hour and you'll see what I'm talking about. And apparently, so Don Jr. set up a lunch. They spent it actually went to, it was supposed to be an hour lunch. It went like 2.5 hours. And they said right away you could feel the chemistry. Trump liked him from the get-go, liked his family, liked his story, his biography, his demeanor, just everything about him impressed him. And right away, Trump looked at Don Jr. and said, you know what? I may have just found my VP. That was after the first meeting. And then, of course, they had more follow-up meetings. And now they're very close and, they're ideological warriors in arms and they're actually very good friends. But you're completely right, Donald. Don Jr. did his father and the country a huge favor. And if I can just add one other quick thing and then go right back to you, Donald. If you're a Democrat, and I mean in particular, I'm not talking about the crazy moonbats. These people are unreachable. But if you're a blue-collar Democrat, if you're a union Democrat, if you're a working class, middle class Democrat, if you're a Democrat that pays taxes, and you care about your job, and you care about your future and your children's future, how can you not, exactly as Donald and Raynham just put it, line up and say, you know what, even if I don't like Trump, I'm going to vote for JD. He's going to bring manufacturing back to the United States. We're going to end all of the outsourcing of our jobs. We're going to end all of this illegal immigration that is driving down your wages. And these illegals are stealing your jobs. All of your tax money is being diverted to pay for free food and free shelter and free health care and free prepaid Visa debit cards and a free education. Everything on your dime. Here is a guy that will defend the working middle class of this country. I know Trump will do it, but I'm saying JD in particular, policy after policy after policy. I'm sorry, but if you have half a brain and you're working middle class and you don't vote, okay, you don't like Trump's personality, just for the sake of argument, then vote for JD. Vote for the policies, vote for the agenda, vote for your future, because I'm telling you, China is going to steal everything from us within 10 years. Vance is completely correct. We have to start putting America and Americans first. And the working middle class, they don't just have their champion in Donald Trump. Intellectually, ideologically, they have their champion now in JD. And I agree with you, Donald. After last night's masterful performance, if I'm a working class union guy, a blue collar guy, I'm like, are we crazy? We got to vote for J.D. Vance 100 times. Donald, am I wrong?
Not at all. And one other thing, and I'll let you go. If anybody is out there that comes from an alcoholic or drug-addicted family, a parent, and that man did not inspire you to give you hope that there is hope out there, You need to start praying.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Amen. Donald, great call. Great call. And that's the other thing. It wasn't just intellectual firepower that he brought. It was that he spoke from the heart and that he opened himself up to the country. I found it at times very moving when he was like, look, you think I want for the country what I had to endure? To see my mother addicted to drugs? To have it destroy my family? How many close friends, how many family members I lost to drugs who OD'd? You think I want this? In other words, I'm going to give it everything I have to stop the scourge of fentanyl and heroin and opiates that are destroying our country. It was heart-moving. It was heart-wrenching. It was profoundly moving. And I looked at this and I said, this is not just a smart man. This is a decent man who has never forgotten who he is and where he comes from. And I agree with Donald 1,000%. There is hope. There is a second chance. This is America. We can achieve the American dream. If you suffer from alcoholism, if you suffer from addiction, if you suffer from the scourge of drugs, you can come back. You can come back. That's why ultimately his story is one of hope and redemption. That's why I think his biography is so powerful. And, he has the guts to share it. He's not afraid. He's not ashamed of who he is or what he is and where he came from. It's not easy to talk about being raised by a grandmother. Basically, he had no parents. I was raised by a grandmother. That's why to him, family means so. That's why you can tell he wants a lot of children. He loves children. Because in a sense, he was deprived of a childhood. You can see that. And so he wants to be surrounded by children and he wants to give them the joy and happiness that he never had as a child growing up. And then the way the military turned his life around. And as he said, really made me the man that I am today. I mean, my God. I mean, really, there should be a movie made about this guy. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Jim in Florida. Thanks for holding, Jim, and welcome.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for getting me on.
My pleasure, Jim.
Here's something I want to add to this, what you've just been hitting on. I watched Fox after, and they said, well, I don't think it really, a couple of them said it didn't really move the needle. And here's where I disagree. If you're 30 to 50 years old and you're kind of independent, conservative, but I've noticed, because I'm older than that, but I talk to a lot of people in that age group, I noticed a lot of them don't connect with Trump. He's from a different generation, and they don't really understand him. And what Vance did last night, to me, he came off as like a nephew. Like what he did really well is when he answered that question, because they were trying to set him up. Like you said so many bad things about him before, and then they were trying to make him into a flipper. And he really described it well. To me, he came off like not a son that was distant, but like a nephew that didn't understand his uncle. But then through experience and then seeing what Trump did and the fire that he went through, he really answered it well, because in a way he kind of still he showed that he is of a different generation, but that he grew into understanding Trump. And there's a lot of people out there. I think this did move the needle, because I think what they saw was there's still going to be people that don't like Trump, his personality, and don't even really totally understand him. But he made a really good argument as to what the virtue of Trump was. And then when you throw in Vance with it, it's going to give them the comfort zone to vote for him. And they're going to say, hey, Trump listens to this guy. He brought him on board. And I just think it's that was a really good moment. And I think it is going to move the needle. I think it's going to bring in some people out there, 30 to 50, don't really follow politics that closely, but know they got to vote. And I think it's going to bring them in, some of these people. I granted there's a lot of people out there who have already made their mind up, but there's still probably 5 to 7% of people out there, I would say, that could go either way. So I thought that was really good last night.
I agree. And just to second what you're saying, Jim, look, I think he reached out to independents. I disagree with much of the analysis on Fox last night. I think he did move the needle. Number one, I think he appealed to independents, undecided voters, as you put it, those between 30 and 50, some of them men who are a different generation, who maybe like Trump's policies, but don't like his style or his personality. And JD said, hey, look, they can relate to JD. And basically, look, Trump's there for 4 years. That's it. He's term limited. So he's got 4 years. So you're looking at this and you're saying, and he's the next guy up, 8 years of him, and he's going to be influencing Trump for 4 years? I can go with this. I also think women that are still undecided will look at JD, and this is what he did last night. He defanged the media caricature, not just of him, but of Trump. You look at a guy like JD, and you're like, what threat to democracy? What are these people talking about? JD Vance is no threat to democracy. And the way he explained Trump, and I love the way he did, he said, look, you don't like some of the stuff that he does. You don't like some of his tweets. Look at the record. He kept coming back to the record. Low inflation, higher take-home pay, a secure border, a booming economy, energy independence, no wars in the Middle East, no wars in Russia and Ukraine. He can fix all of our problems. He did it already. He's got a record. I thought it was brilliant how he kept coming back to that. As he said, saying, look, we're not arguing policy. It's not some newcomer and what will that person do or not do. We've got 4 years to judge him on. And he reminded everybody, and he said this afterwards when he was being interviewed by other journalists. He said, I had really one goal. I had a couple goals, but he said one of my big goals was to remind everybody Trump solved a lot of problems. They're trying to caricature him. Oh, he's this dictator. He wants power. And they're like, don't you realize how many problems he solved? All this guy did was solve problem after problem after problem. So we got a lot of problems. He's the guy to solve them. That's why we should vote for him. I thought, Jim, the way he packaged the argument and the way he conveyed it is going to resonate with a lot of people. And it is going to move the needle. It's going to move it in Pennsylvania. It's going to move it especially in Georgia and North Carolina, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Minnesota, in New Mexico, in Virginia. I think J.D. Vance did Trump a big favor last night. And watch. Look, and Walt's imploding. It's not just that Vance did so well, which he did. It's that Waltz collapsed. Waltz, frankly, made a fool of himself last night. You combine those two, I'm telling you, you're going to see a bump for Trump and Vance. Final word to you, Jim.
Yeah, I agree. And that generation, what he did is he connected them to Trump through him. And he said, look, you may not totally understand this guy, but look at the testicles this guy's put forth in his fight. And he mentioned that several times. And so what I think he's done is he's really made that testament. And when you throw him in, like you said, his tone and everything is more of that generation, and he can connect with them and women. I think I do definitely think it moved a couple percentage points, which is crucial, is what we need. We got to get the momentum in this thing.
Jim, thank you very much for that call. Matt on Cape Cod. Thanks for holding, Matt, and welcome.
Jeff, good morning.
Matt, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, Jeff. Very good. Jeff, I got a few things I'd like to contribute. Number one, this debate, I compare it to, and it was reminiscent of the Kennedy-Nixon debate of 1969, where Nixon just looked totally just deer in the headlights, as they say. He just, sweating, just, nervous. It was all optics. The other thing that came across to me was when I watched Tim Walz, he almost looked like he was schizophrenic, that the way he was acting. And he's going on and on about, Minnesota. That's all he kept talking about was Minnesota. And I do think, and I agree with a lot of the callers, that I think J.D. left a lot on the field. He had a lot of opportunities that he missed. One of the big ones could have been, he kept talking about Minnesota. He goes, J.D. could have turned to him and said, well, you could have fooled me the way you let your city and your state burn during the George Floyd riots. But what really got me was when the debate was over, I turned to MSNBC. And basically, Jeff, all they could do, and their talking point basically came down to JD is a better liar than Trump. That's when I knew these people suffered a major defeat last night, and they knew it. And JD shined, even though I think he left. He had opportunities that he missed. I'll agree with probably what your wife's going to say and a lot of other callers. But I want to just say one other thing that he brought out, the issue of drug addiction and fentanyl. And one of the previous callers, a couple of callers ago, brought it up. That's a day you'll never forget. It's the day you get clean.
Oh, Matt, great call. Look, you can tell by the meltdown on MSNBC, on CNN, on ABC News, CBS, NBC, the New York Times. You can tell by their reaction. JD won, then won by a knockout. 21 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Let me ask you, did you watch last night's debate? What did you make of it? And who do you think won? J.D. Vance or Tiananmen Tim Walz? And in particular, because I'm getting a lot of tough guy liberals on the text line going on about how Walz apparently cleaned J.D. Vance's clock, that Walz came out the winner, that this was an outstanding performance on the part of Tampon Tim. I would love for you to call the show and make your case. I'll give you 60 seconds uninterrupted, and you can tell us why you think Walz won last night. 617-266-6868. Harry in Chelmsford. Thanks for holding, Harry, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. How are you?
I'm very good, especially after last night, Harry. Feeling excellent.
Yeah. Me too, and I think that's going to be a blank set of minutes on airtime trying to find that call coming in. Anyway, for last night, every time Walz was talking, you notice JD looked up with that face, that beautiful face of his, calm, secure, determined, and dedicated. I just saw that in that man's face. I listened to some of his other debates on TV yesterday afternoon, and I heard that Walz is going to be well prepared. And I had some thoughts, and then when it started, I was just so proud to have that man going to be second in command of my country when we win in less than a month. And we're going to do it. Hallelujah. And, I want to say one thing in closing. And Tampon Tim's facial expressions looked like Popeye on steroids. Kept making that mouth, that. Anyway, President Trump yesterday, I heard in a speech saying how the chart moved his head, and he loves that chart, and that might be his thinking, but he had an experience with the hand of God that day, and if he's listening, he probably is. Please say it right, sir, that God moved your head, not the chart. The chart was a tool. But God moved your head and moved that bullet from taking your life and praise him, and we're going to win. And I want you to be my president, Mr. Trump. There we go.
Amen. Harry, very well said. And thank you very much for that call. And I do agree with you. God saved him that day. That was the hand of God. No question about it. No question about it. Barbara in Maryland. Thanks for holding, Barbara, and welcome.
And thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Barbara.
I love J.D. Vance, but I did want to share something with you and the audience before I said something about it, the debate. They have already found 1.4 million questionable, illegal mail-in ballots that have been sent out to a lot of bogus addresses, businesses, and that's in Michigan. 1.4 million have been sent out for people to send back in. So we need to be aware of the fact they are going to use those illegal aliens to try to steal this election. That was breaking news this morning, and all of you probably hear about it a little bit later. J.D. Vance showed me, I liked him anyway, after watching the movie Hillbilly Elegy, great movie. I've liked him since I watched that movie because I saw where he came from. People who come from that kind of background that he grew up in and become the man that he is, that's not an easy task. And I have a lot of respect for him. And after watching him dice and slice Don Rickles / Popeye, I kind of like Popeye. He reminds me of Don Rickles. But your previous caller compared him to Popeye, and I thought, yeah, you know how when Popeye would say, yeah, blow me down.
Well, let me ask you this, Barbara. A lot of people are comparing him to Elmer Fudd. They're saying that all's missing is the hat. That'd be a perfect Elmer Fudd. What do you think of that?
Well, that one too. Boy, I tell you what, a cartoon character we've got. So imagine the Joker, and that would be Kamala, and Popeye or Don Rickles as VP. The Joker is president, and the comedian. J.D. Vance did a fantastic job. And he did, I've heard people say, oh, he didn't bring up the Chinese connection and this, he didn't bring this. What he did is exactly what I heard you say earlier.
Barbara, can you hang on? We're up against a break. We're going to continue with Barbara. She's saying that JD did exactly what he needed to do. We're going to pick it up with Barbara. Agree, disagree. Take all of your calls. Next. RKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go right back to Barbara in Maryland. Barbara saying, look, yeah, you can nitpick all you want. He should have mentioned Waltz's ties to the Chinese Communist Party, how he allowed Minneapolis to burn during the BLM riots, but that J.D. Vance really delivered on one key thing he needed to do, and then we got cut off. Please, Barbara, pick up where you left off.
J.D. Vance pointed out successes of President Trump's accomplishments in this economy and the respect we had in the world, our financial successes, what was happening in this country. A lot of people forget just how good we had it during President Trump's administration. And he brought that home and, to me, successfully compared it to the failures of the last 3.5 years. And I think he really nailed it. For people who are, looking, they don't like Trump's personality, they don't like this, whatever. We're not electing a pope here. We're electing someone to save this country. And I think he really nailed that last night. And he maneuvered around those commentators. Like they were trying to rescue Tim all the time because he really needed help. But JD stayed on point with him and made him actually look like a fool because I don't think he ever intended to say that he knows he's friends with school shooters. I mean, when you make people get so discombobulated that they make those kind of statements, he was just off his game. Tim Walz is not a bright man. And as a matter of fact, I think he's dangerously stupid. You know what I'm saying? And he's worse than Kamala. So we just simply can't have that. But JD did his job. Anyone who does not remember what it was like from 2016 to 2020, we nailed it. We got to live with what these people are doing. And the gas prices, he kept bringing that back, gas prices, our food prices. He dealt with what everyday people are dealing with, and only the Hollywood elite and rich folks don't care about gas and food prices and the price of housing. Hey, he did it as far as I'm concerned. And we don't need other people also talking about Trump needs to debate Kamala Harris. For what? She is an empty vessel with nothing to say, so he doesn't need to waste his time debating her again. I think this thing is over, and Donald Trump is going to be president if they don't steal it. We've got to be on our game. Everybody, when you go to the polls, wear a hat and a T-shirt that says Border Patrol. Make them illegals run away. Just wear a hat, just cheat.
Barbara,
they'll never know. They'll never know which one of us are real Border Patrol. But I'm telling you,
Barbara, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. I agree with you. Look, I think this is over. Last night was the final nail, political nail in the coffin of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. I think there's no question now. The only way they can win it now is if they steal it. All of the energy, all of the momentum, all of the passion, the polls now, the surge is all now behind Trump and behind Walz. And to show you how bad it is for Kamala, Rasmussen now has a latest poll on Trump in the state of New York. Okay? We're talking blue New York. Trump is now within single digits. He's within striking distance of Kamala in New York. To me, that's a 5-alarm fire. That's a 5-alarm fire. So, no, I don't think Trump needs to do any more debates. For what? To have more moderators like we saw last night? And to me, this was one of the best moments of the debate last night, is when he turned it around on the moderators. So, if you remember, they come in and they state that the rules are, these are their rules, that there'll be no fact-checking by moderators of the candidates. Well, of course, they can't help themselves. They start breaking their own rules. And, of course, they're not checking, fact-checking Tiananmen Tim. No. They're fact-checking JD. And at one point, they're talking about the Haitian migrants in Springfield. And I believe it was Margaret Brennan. And Margaret Brennan makes this comment like, well, it just needs to be said. All those Haitians have legal status. They're legally in Springfield. And J.D. Vance is like, no. They're here on false asylum claims because they abused the CBP One app that was set up by Harris and Biden to allow these people to come in by avoiding and ignoring the law. And so Margaret Brennan is trying to fact check Vance for telling the truth about the migrants in Springfield, Ohio. And then as Vance says, well, no, I'm sorry, you're fact checking me. I'm going to fact check you because you're not telling the truth. They cut his mic off. They literally mute his mic. But he keeps talking. And even though the mic is muted, you can still hear Vance. It summed the whole thing up. It was 3-on-1, and they were fact-checking the truth. And then Vance turned the tables and fact-checked the fact-checkers. I'm telling you, it was masterful. Here it is, roll cut 19, Mike.
Margaret, but thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn out of the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
The rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own leadership.
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws have been on the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The CBP app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut.
I mean, it was disgusting. Honestly, it was disgusting. Almost as bad as ABC News. It was insulting. By the way, again, I told you, Waltz is an incorrigible liar. The guy's a compulsive liar. It hasn't been around since 1990. That's a blatant lie. A bald-faced lie. Vance is completely right. The CBP One app was created under Harris and Biden. It was them. And it was a way to get around the asylum laws of our country, to let them in from Venezuela, to let them in from Haiti, to let them in from Nicaragua, to let them in from El Salvador, to let them in from certain countries in Central America and from Haiti, where you don't even need, literally, you don't even have to pass a criminal background check. All you got to do is show up at a port of entry at the appointed time, in you go. And so J.D. Vance is saying, no, they're ignoring our asylum laws. You're not supposed to come into the country that way. It's an abuse of the system. And 20,000 migrants in a town of 40,000. And he went on. It's driven up housing costs. True. Rent. True. It's created a massive increase in crime. True. Traffic accidents. True. They've stolen most of the jobs from the lower income working class people in Springfield. Black, white, Latino. True. He goes, and you want more of this? And of course, they don't want the truth to get out. So mute the mics, cut them off. Now, I said it in my opening monologue. I want to say it again because it needs to be said. Republicans were screaming bloody murder again after the debate, saying this was blatantly unfair. It was unprofessional. It was naked censorship. They're trying to silence him. Hey, you only have yourselves to blame. I'm sorry. Yes, what they did was disgusting. No question. But how many times do they have to do it to you? Like after a while, it's like, again, Lucy and Charlie Brown. Stop kicking the football. She's going to pull it on you every time. Like, come on, man. You know the expression, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. How about fool me twice 100 times, shame on me? So when are you going to learn your lesson? Stop doing debates with the fake news media because it's always rigged. And let me just say one last thing. Okay, and then I promise I'm going to go back to the phone lines. Do you know what J.D. Vance, and I understand everybody's saying, Jeff, he should have said this, he should have said that. He left a lot on the field. But that's because it was 3-on-1. Can you imagine if this was one moderator who just let them discuss the issues and didn't need to make himself or herself the story? In other words, a free, fair debate. Vance would have nuked him. I'm not saying knock him out like last night. He would have nuked him. He would have exposed the ties to the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, everything that people are saying, he would have gone on about Black Lives Matter and how Minneapolis was burned to the ground. But it was constantly 3-on-1. They're interjecting. They're cutting him off. They're doing everything they can to help him. He was in the lion's den. And he still won. RKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Dr. Grace putting liberals in their place is warming up in the bullpen. She's going to be on in 10 minutes. Trust me, you're going to want to hear her take on last night's debate. Super quick. This is from 508. You can text us 70470. Jeff, J.D. Vance called out the moderators for lying to the audience. And what did CBS do? They immediately muted him. The legacy media is clearly controlled by the Democrats. No question. No question. That's why they had to mute him. Because he was saying, you're lying and I'm going to expose your lies. Click. Turn them off. Tom in Framingham. Thanks for holding, Tom, and welcome.
I just want to talk about the exchange that you just referenced. I just want to quickly go over it. Here's Nora O'Donnell. She says, okay, all right, we're going to move on to the economy. Then JD explains the CBP-1, how it's being used by the regime to illegally parole migrants into the country. He explains how these mostly unvetted migrants simply have to fill out and submit an online form, and approval is expedited, where they jump ahead of everyone. And many are flown. Many don't. Sure, they can show up at the points of entry and they're let in, the land points of entry, but many are flown across the border where they receive legal status. I don't know if he mentioned it, but that's the way it was. Brennan then says, okay, and you just played this. Thank you, Mr. Vance, for explaining the legal process to us. Then Timmy blurts out, this has been around since 1990, implying that CBP-1, the app created by the Mayorkas DHS, has been around since 1990. Here are the two lies, okay, and it's important to point them out. One, for Brendan, CBP-1 is not part of the legal process. In fact, it circumvents existing immigration law and was meant as a way to quietly bring aliens into the country versus having them show up in numbers at or between land crossings. So, Brendan, CBP-1, not part of the legal process. It's an extra-legal process. It's illegal. As a matter of fact, it was mentioned in the articles of impeachment. Two, Timmy, in his continually lies, throws stuff against the wall and seeing if it sticks. CBP-1 was launched in 2022, not 1990. The last thing I'm going to say is I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago at the Del Rio crossing, a bunch of Haitians showed up there.
Yes.
Okay. Then they start magically disappearing. I watched CBS News. It was on a Friday night. Nora O'Doodles gets on and says, as many as 1,000 of these Haitians have been deported. About 3 weeks later, when this is all cooled down, Mayorkas shows on with Chris Wallace when he was still doing the Fox stuff. Chris Wallace asked him, how many of those Haitians were released into the United States? He goes, was it more than 5,000? Mayorkas says, yes. Was it more than 10,000? Was it 10,000? Was it more than 10,000? Mayorkas said yes. So many of these Haitians that are probably sitting there in Springfield, Ohio, probably came in this way, and that was about as illegal. That was about an illegal entry into the United States as you can.
Oh, they bull rushed the border. Yeah, I remember that. And then they lied. Say, remember the Border Patrol on horseback were whipping the Haitians. Do you remember that? And they were saying, oh, it's like slavery. It's like slavery. And it turned out nobody whipped anybody. But the media lied about it. Mayorkas lied about it. Biden and Harris lied about it. So you're right, Tom. Look, they've been lying about these Haitian migrants. They've been lying about illegals since day one. And Vance exposed them last night. And that's why they had to mute his mic. I mean, it was disgusting. It really was. It's shameful. And by the way, these are the same people that later would go on in the debate, threat to democracy, threat to democracy. And again, I thought Vance was brilliant, saying, don't talk about January 6th. There was a peaceful transfer of power. Biden became president, even though he stole the election, but let that go. And B, you're the one censoring everybody. Censorship is the number one threat to our country's democracy. And who's engaging in that? You. Hell, you were just doing it to him 15 minutes ago. Tom, outstanding call. Thank you very much for that call. Dawn in the great state of New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dawn, and welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Kuhner.
Hi, Dawn.
How are you? Hey, first I have a meme. Uncle Scar in The Lion King could be Kamala Harris. Stick with me and you'll never go hungry again. You know? So I'm interested to hear what you think about this. The typical litany of lies about Trump, you know, good people on both sides, he's a felon and all that stuff. I didn't hear a lot of that in the debate last night.
I mean, what's your theory? Why do you think we didn't hear that, Don?
I think they didn't want to hear Vance, you know, look at the camera and start tearing all those lies apart. Because they know they're lies.
I agree.
And I'm talking about the moderators.
No, I agree. And notice, they didn't do the whole Hitler thing. They didn't do the whole, he's a tyrant, he's a wannabe dictator, because, look, it was pretty obvious within 10 to 15 minutes of the debate, Vance had so established his intellectual dominance, his policy, you know, his grasp of policy, and honestly, what a nimble debater he is. You know, see, that's the thing. You can't fake it. It's not just that he was prepped. He was. But he's a highly educated, well-read man. You can just see that. And the other thing, Don, that they've underestimated, they made a big mistake. Waltz has been running from the media for how many weeks now? He just won't do an interview. But Vance does interview after interview after interview after interview. So, you know, it's like a fighter who's had 100 fights. He came into the ring. He was lean, mean. He was ready. The other guy had complete ring rust. And it showed. And really, Don, I mean, Vance, rhetorically, he beat him like a drum. I mean, it was almost as bad as Trump's smackdown of Biden on CNN on June 27th. It was a horrible, humiliating night for Waltz and for Kamala. There's no question. Don, excellent point. Thank you for that call. That's why they didn't even try some of the shenanigans, because they realized, well, no, Vance will kill us. Let's not even go there. No, he'll intellectually dismember us. So let's just leave it alone. Diana in Groton. Thanks for holding, Diana, and welcome.
Yeah, hello. Good morning.
Good morning, Diana.
If it hasn't been discussed yet, I just wanted to point out that I think J.D. Vance answered the question about pro-family very well, especially for those who may be on the fence voting either way, because pro-family is multifaceted. It's not just about the birth of the baby, it's also the aftercare, and it is expensive for child care. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on your thoughts on that. But I also am curious because I feel like in the last presidential debate and here, no one really fact-checked to confirm what the Minnesota abortion law is. And I feel like J.D. Vance is like the governor because he said it perfectly, and Waltz didn't really have an answer to that. He's just, no, that's not it. So what is it? Do you know?
Diana, here is exactly the abortion law in Minnesota. Any child, any baby born in a botched abortion, the mother has, with the doctor's consent, has the right to terminate that baby's life. And that includes abortions that are in the 8th month and even the 9th month. And it's not a hypothetical. You can look it up. 8 babies, 8 viable babies. They had 2 legs, 2 arms, a head, heart, lungs, kidneys, liver. These are babies that would live. 8 babies were murdered. That's the only word. Were murdered after they were born during a botched abortion under Waltz's new law. That to me was what's now Vance threw out the number 5. It's not 5. It's 8. 8 babies. 8 babies. They're born. They're not in the womb now. They're out of the womb. And the doctor and the mother said, I kill it. Which to me is barbaric. I think Vance was completely right. It's one of the most barbaric things you can do. And Diana, speaking now as someone who's adopted 2 children, and I love my 2 children. You have no idea how much I love them. I can't tell you the waiting list of loving parents. Those 8 babies would be adopted, I'm not kidding, in a millisecond. not even a second, a millisecond. They would pay whatever it has to pay. We paid $60,000, for the adoption per child. They would pay whatever it costs to have those babies and to adopt them and raise them in a loving, beautiful home. When a child is born alive in this country, when I'm saying there's millions on the waiting list, literally millions. It's infanticide. It's murder. Tim Walz should be ashamed of himself. Final word to you, Diana.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. 617-266-6868. Okay, I've been looking forward to this all morning. Joining me now, Grace Vuoto, my better half. Dr. Grace putting liberals in their place. You can hear her here on WRKO, always at this time. She has an absolutely brilliant column. It's one of the best columns, I'm telling you, I've ever read by Grace, and I think it's one of the best she's ever done. It's called Gentile Vance Missed Opportunities to Expose Radical Agenda. Whether you agree or disagree, you've got to read the column, because, man, does she destroy Kamala in the midst of analyzing this debate. It is a masterpiece. You can go to WRKO.com/Kuhner, WRKO.com/Kuhner. I'm urging all of you, please read it. Pass it on to all of your friends and family members. Grace, welcome to the Kuhner Report. I want to read the opening lead of your column because I think it sets it up beautifully. Quote, Republican Senator J.D. Vance showed America on Tuesday night that he is a gentleman, a class act indeed. But was he too genteel for this moment in American history? Grace, I know you think J.D. Vance won. You state that in your column clearly, that he debated circles around Tim Walz. But you said there were key missed opportunities. He needed to do more. He should have done more. Please explain.
Jeff, honestly, this morning I feel a little bit like that character Mickey in Rocky, It's like, I want to get him in the ribs. I want to knock him out. I feel like that. And I felt like that all night. It's like he was good. He exploded the media caricature of him, so we saw who the real Vance is. I do want to give him his due, and that's why I took paragraph after paragraph to praise him. He was a gentleman. He was stately. He was gracious. He was compassionate. He was intellectually sophisticated. You name it. He did a lot there that was great. So he deserved to be standing there, and for his first huge debate with so much national exposure, he held his own and he won. But it wasn't enough for this dire, urgent moment that we are in right now in American history. He never once really exposed the grave threats that we are facing. We have faced with the Biden-Harris administration, and that we will face even more with the Harris-Walz administration. This is not the 1950s. This is not, you know what? We can find common ground, Tim. As I wrote in my column, this is not pickleball in Foxborough. We are in an urgent, dire emergency right now. This is a battle for the heart and soul of our country. We are on the ropes. He didn't express any of that urgency. He didn't express the extent to which the Democratic Party has been radicalized, so radicalized that Robert F. Kennedy, a legend, the Kennedy family is legendary in the party, that they've walked away in utter disgust. This was not supposed to be just another night, another Tuesday night with snacks in front of a TV screen. This is an emergency. Where was his passion? Where was his outrage? Where were the knockout blows?
Well, Grace, to be fair to him, look, you're asking him to be something that he's just not. He's not a man of anger. He's not a man of outrage. He's not a man of passion. That's more, frankly, Donald Trump. Trump is the street brawler. J.D. Vance is, he's more of he's a debater. He's an intellectual. He's a statesman. He's a policy guy. And to be honest, Grace, they kept caricaturing him as weird, as this ogre, as this, right-wing monster. Well, if he came out swinging wildly, they say, you see what I tell you? The guy's crazy. He's an extremist. So he came across as cool, calm, composed, methodical, logical, factual. It blew up the entire media myth, the caricature, the lies about him. So in a way, I think his goal was not to be what you wanted him to be. What say you?
No, Jeff. No, I completely disagree with you. When Marco Rubio, for example, debates, nobody says that he's an ogre. Nobody says that he's mean and rude. But he knows, even with intellectual sophistication, how to go for the jugular. Vance did not go for the jugular. And it's not because, I'm trying for him to be something that he's not. It's that a few times he flinched when he had a knockout right in front of him. He kind of choked a few times when he could have gone for gold, but he just went for silver.
Give me a couple of examples, Dr. Grace.
Yes, I'll give you an example. For example, when he was asked about the election, why didn't he simply say, I'm standing in front of the American people and telling you that there are millions who believe that election was stolen. We have a serious problem in this country, and you have no right to demonize citizens who are raising these serious concerns. Donald Trump was elected now as the Republican nominee because there were millions of people who agree with his perspective. And stop demonizing and stop diminishing us. There were so many moments where he could have said what Donald Trump says, but with the intellectual sophistication of somebody that's Yale educated. But he didn't. And sometimes he flinched. He was a little bit too embarrassed, for example, to discuss election integrity. That really upset me, to be honest. And then when we're talking about Tim Walz, there was a huge opening. They asked him about his trips to China. Why didn't he say, excuse me, Walz, what do you have to learn from China? China is stealing our intellectual property. We are the model. They are not the model. If you're going to bring students anywhere, you bring them around the United States of America to learn about democracy, to learn about capitalism, to learn about freedom, at least before. Now we have to struggle to talk about freedom in this country. But anyways, we are the model, not China. Why are you bringing your students to China? Why didn't he stand there in front of the American people, even with his own style? I want him to use his own style, but I want him to go for gold. I want him to knock out the other side. And by being such a gentleman, by the end, okay, you won the debate. Bravo. But your gentlemanly demeanor in the end has conferred legitimacy on them. Because to the person that's low information, they didn't see anything other than another night in America. This is not just another election. So he left them standing. Leaving them standing right now is not good enough. I'm sorry, it's not good enough. If we lose in November, it will be because Donald Trump did not do a good enough job in the debate with Harris, and Vance won but didn't knock them out.
I know in particular you mentioned in your column that when they mentioned the threat to democracy January 6th, blah, 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 you said, look, the massive opening that Vance didn't take was the lawfare waged against Trump by the Democrats, by Kamala. We've got 2 minutes. Go.
Jeff, this is unprecedented. Why didn't he stand there and say, shame on you? You say that we are a threat to democracy, that Trump is a threat to democracy. For a year, you have vilified this man in every way. You have dragged him through every courtroom. You have called him every name. You have encouraged a vile rhetoric that has led to assassination attempts. I mean, it's as though none of this happened. Where was Vance? Excuse me. I want him to be intellectually sophisticated, but with the facts of our time. And he just wouldn't go there.
Okay, Grace, I've got to ask you then, because, boy, geez, you sure you liked his performance last night? Because you're grading him pretty tough right now. So Larry and Lemonster, and by the way, I want to introduce you to Larry, because I think you and Larry would get along. Larry, earlier in the show, said if he was to grade JD, he would give him a B+/A-. Now, like me, you're a former professor as well. You were known as a tough grader. What would you give JD?
Jeff, I was a tough grader. It was definitely a B+. I would say bravo, but son, you gotta go all the way for A+ if you want my real praise. And you know me, Jeff, I'm a ball buster. I am a ball buster. You know that about me.
I do. No, I think it was an A. I'll be honest. I think you're being a little bit too tough on him. But look, I do got to say this. You make excellent points as always, and your column is just so well done, so well laid out. And it's not just about JD. It's the way you destroy Kamala Harris as you analyze the debate. So I'm urging everybody, please read it. Trust me, you're going to love it. Pass it on to your friends. Gentile Vance Missed Opportunities to Expose Radical Agenda by Grace Voto. You can read it at wrko.com/Kuhner. KUHN is in National ER. It's on right now on our website. It's posted. And please pass it on to as many people as possible. Grace, as always, a pleasure to have you on. Congratulations on your column. And we'll talk to you next time, next week. Civil war now has just broken out in the entire Kuhner Voto family. So it's 9:20 now on the great WRKO. Everybody is now weighing in. It's like my family at Thanksgiving. Everybody, it's a free for all. So Grace's younger sister, Lori, my sister-in-law, Grace's younger sister, Champ, my nickname for her is Champ. This is what Champ wrote to me as I was discussing with Grace, going back and forth over last night's debate. I agree with you, Kuhner man. People now will listen to what Vance has to say. He needed to debunk the media caricature. Now that he did, he can hit harder moving forward. He also reassures people who are not for Trump that there is a voice of reason to this ticket. He is an excellent foil to Trump. If Vance came out swinging, headlines would all be about two angry men threatening democracy. So Grace's own sister disagrees with her. Then my sister had to weigh in. So this is what my sister texted me. Quote, this is from her, Tucson, Arizona. Jeff, I rarely disagree with Grace, but I think J.D. Vance did a great job, and he came across as someone who is willing to come to common ground with the other side. People are fed up with the divisiveness in our government and how it cripples any governance. I think that some people are afraid to vote for Trump, and J.D. Vance just walked him through the front door last night. Now, I also have a very good friend, Bill, saying he loved Grace. He agrees with Grace, loved Grace. Jeff, you certainly married up, Kuhner man. Grace is on fire. So everybody, pick a side. Pick a side. 617-266-6868. Okay. I want to play two cuts. And speaking of picking sides, I don't want to be you right now. I really don't. Because I'm telling you, I don't know how I'm going to vote in this poll. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm asking you now to make an impossible choice. But it's a question now we have to ask. So, let me just play. Here was Tim Walz last night, Tampon Tim. His first answer to the very first question. Roll cut 1, Mike.
Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you. And thank you for those joining at home tonight. Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But the expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there. You saw it experienced today, where along with our Israeli partners and our coalition, able to stop the incoming attack. But what's fundamental here is that steady leadership is going to matter.
All right. I don't know if you can understand what he said. Nobody can. You want to talk about a word salad. Holy shamoly, okay? But hold on. Listen now to Kamala Harris. Now, I want you to compare now. This is Tim Walz. That's one of his word salads. Here's Kamala, Comrade Kamala. Mike, roll cut 36.
So, I think it's very important, as you have heard from so many incredible leaders, for us at every moment in time, and certainly this one, to see the moment in time in which we exist and are present, and to be able to contextualize it, to understand where we exist in the history and in the moment as it relates not only to the past but the future.
Again, can you understand what she's saying? Now, you know what's coming now. You can see it. You don't know now you don't know what to do. I understand. The Kuhner Country poll question of the day. Sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Who makes the worst word salads? Who's worse? Really, in a way, I'm kind of asking who's stupider, who's dumber. Okay, but let's not put it that, that rudely or that crudely. So who do you think makes worse word salads? A, Comrade Kamala. B, Tampon Tim. Basically, who's dumber? I don't know. I don't know. You go one, then and then you go back. I mean, all Mike has to do now is play. I'm friends with school shooters, and I was going to go Kamala, and now I got to go Tim, and I back and forth. So
I become friends with school shooters.
There you go. See, there you go. I mean, that's an all-time record right there. Then but just play Kamala cackling, and then I'm back to A. So. A or B, I want to hear from you, Kuhner Country. I'm asking you to do the impossible. Please, we can do it. You can vote WRKO.com/Kuhner, WRKO.com/Kuhner, or if you want to vote via X, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, KUHNER. 31 on the great WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, my friends, something that Barbara in Maryland said a couple hours ago. Again, callers have been phenomenal today, as usual, where she said that Tim Walz is dangerously stupid. Okay, the Tampon Tim, dangerously dumb. You can't have someone really that much of a moron. Nothing between his ears. Be a heartbeat away from the presidency. You can't. You can't. It's too dangerous. I want to play a cut. This is not Tim Walz. This is Comrade Kamala. And you want to talk about stupidity. And again, I'm trying to be very charitable. It is shocking. It is stunning. She is asked by a reporter a very simple question. Should you stand for the national anthem? That's the question. I'm telling you, that's the question. I want you to listen to the response. Listen to how she struggles with this easiest, most basic question. It's going to blow your mind. Roll cut 35. Mike.
Should folks stand for the national anthem?
I think that one of the beautiful things about our country is that we were founded on certain principles that we articulated in 1776. We are all and should be treated as equals. We articulated those principles in our Constitution. And part of what we decided is what makes a fair and just and noble society and a democracy, a true democracy, is freedom of religion, freedom, right, of association, freedom to organize, First Amendment. So that is part of who we are as a country, and I will defend it to the core, which is that we give people certain choices in this country.
Oh, man. Oh, man. Yes. That's all. That's the answer. Yes. Here, you want to qualify? I know, for the Black Lives Matter crowd, you want to qualify a little bit? Here's what you say. I mean, look, really, I'm talking double-digit IQ now. That's what I'm, whatever. Single-digit IQ, okay? Just above zero. Just a little bit above zero. Here's what you say. Yeah, you should stand for the national anthem. But hey, look, if some people don't feel comfortable or don't want to do it, I understand. But I always stand for the national anthem. Why? It's our anthem. We should stand for it. Bang. That's it. Move on. That's it. That's your answer. Okay, how long did that take me? 8 seconds? 7 seconds? This. She's not just a far left winger. This is her problem. I'm telling you, she is hopelessly stupid. I'm sorry. I can't phrase it any other way. I'm trying to be charitable. I can't. This is what we've seen now again and again and again. And that's why she's going down. You take it to the bank. She's as dumb as Joe Biden is senile. And I'm telling you, if she wins, if they somehow pull this off, her as president, and Tampon Tim as vice president, I don't even want to think of it. And as Mike said in the pre-show production meeting, because I played the clip to him, he couldn't believe it. Like Mike was like, he was shaking his head. He was just like, can somebody be that humanly stupid? Is it possible? And this is what he said to me. I'm quoting almost Mike verbatim. You tell me if I misquote you, Mike. I'll leave out the swearing, Mike. He said, Jeff, the scary thing is, this is still a very close election. Can you believe that? This election is still close. That's the scariest thing of all. What does this say about the American people that it's this close? Patrick in New York. Thanks for holding, Patrick, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, I think the debate did a couple of things last night. One, it showed that Tim Walz is what we always thought he was, a somewhat affable buffoon that, is not intellectually up to the position he's applying for. But more importantly, what JD did is he cemented himself as the heir to MAGA, which is very good for the MAGA movement because I've criticized the MAGA movement and Donald Trump for being somewhat of a one-man movement. Now it has depth. It has a longevity that outlasts Donald Trump's political life, so that people can vote with comfort and say this movement's going to go on. This movement is going on beyond Donald Trump's political life. And if something happened to Donald Trump, there's somebody in place to pick up the reins and keep the movement, keep things going in the movement. The third thing that happened last night is that CBS, which is owned by Paramount, which was slowly dying, its stock price has gone from $100 a share to about $10 a share, and was dying a slow death. That death took on speed last night. I think that the media, you just mentioned that this race is close, even though Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are both intellectually challenged. The media has made that possible, but they've done it at a tremendous cost to their stockholders. Where ABC, the ABC debate cost David Muir about 12% of his audience, which is going to hurt the Disney stock. And Paramount, who was already on a financial lifeline and has just announced that they're laying off 10,000 people, probably did themselves a lot of harm last night.
Oh, I agree. So I agree, Patrick, on every count. Patrick, if you don't mind me asking, and if I'm getting too personal, please tell me. look, God forbid, I want Trump to live, as the Italians say, 100 years. Okay, Chantan, 100 years. I hope he lives to 100. I really do. Like Jimmy Carter. But if something was to happen to Trump, okay, the assassination attempts or he's in office, would you be comfortable voting for J.D. Vance after what you saw last night?
I saw a man of a superior intellect, and I disagree with Grace. And that's not a normal occurrence for me. I saw a man who was smart enough, who had an opponent that was punching himself in the face, and was smart enough to realize that he didn't have to do it too. There was no upside to dogpiling Tim Walz last night, and there might have been some downside. So I saw a man that was, smart enough to graduate college in 2 years, and then graduate with honors in one of the best law schools in the country, and then but also has the incredible judgment to be a strategic thinker and a good tactical thinker on his feet. So yes, I'd be absolutely comfortable. There's other people in the conservative movement. I think Ron DeSantis is still our finest administrative leader. But right now, JD just took the reins as the heir apparent.
I agree. Patrick, I agree on every single point. Patrick, thank you very much for that call. And please don't be a stranger. Call again. Arthur in Chestnut Hill. Arthur, as always, thanks for holding and welcome.
Thanks for taking my call, Jeff.
My pleasure, Arthur.
Well, your other half, your significant half, should be the caller of the century because everything that she said was 800%. I felt everything that she felt. And you remember when everybody was praising Trump's performance last time, I called you up and said to you, he came unprepared. The only thing he prepared was how his tie looked. Time after time after time, I'm watching this and I'm saying, why aren't you mentioning this? Why are you've got so many things on your side that you can expose without coming off as somebody who's a bad guy. But he came out like a marshmallow. I thought when the debate was over, they were all going to go out for dinner together. I mean, this was the last chance for us to get facts out there because when you're on CBS, you have to remember, Jeff, that when you're on CBS or ABC, you're on stations that don't show or tell the truth or expose what's going on at the border. The last visit that Kamala made to the border, one of her 5 in her lifetime, she's taken it in front of the wall that Trump built and looking down at the ground, and not one illegal within 100 miles of the place. That you talk about a phony photo op. Well, that's what we saw. The guy went to China 31 times. He had his honeymoon 31 times. Every time he came back, all he did was praise China. China is a communist country. I don't know what happened to this country that we thought we won the Cold War. We didn't win the Cold War. Look what China has done to us. And this guy is one of the most diabolical, dangerous guys. There were moments in that debate when you saw the expressions and.
Arthur, can you hang on? You're on a roll. I hate to do this to you. I'm up against a hard break. Hang on, Arthur. I want you to finish your point. Arthur he called JD a marshmallow, saying, like Grace, he should have done a lot more and he missed opportunities. Do you agree? Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Let's go right back to Arthur in Chestnut Hill. Arthur, you were saying that you think JD left a lot of opportunities or missed opportunities on the table. He should have gone much harder after Tim Walz, the tampon Tim, and that this may turn around to bite Trump and JD on Election Day. Please, Arthur, pick up where you left off.
Well, the reason for this, Jeff, is because when these people watch CBS, you know that the big stories this past week was that a retired border agent exposed the fact that the DHS ordered them not to report the amount of criminals that were out there. When this leaked out, CBS didn't report on it. NBC did it. None of these stations, none of the media reported on it. This was his opportunity to report on it and let American people know. You have no idea how many people in this country that don't have a clue as to what's going on. They don't even know what's going on at the border because the only pictures they ever see are the ones they saw with Kamala the other day. And when they for some reason took that shot at Waltz there about Tiananmen when he was in China, did you see how he reacted? He did not know what to do, and JD didn't seize upon that moment. It was like a fighter who gave him a knockout punch and then turned around and said, "I'm not going to hit him again." This isn't about that. This is the life of this country. This is the future of this country. You have no idea. Evidently, nobody seems to understand exactly what's at stake here, or they wouldn't be taking it so lightly. You know, I've seen what's happened to this country, Jeff, and I see what's going on today. I thought Obama and Biden were dangerous because I saw where Obama came from, but compared to those two, these two are the most diabolical things. That the fact that they're even running for president and vice president is just unbelievable.
I agree. It's frightening. Arthur, as always, thank you very much for your call. Always interesting and very passionate. Chris in Peabody, thanks for holding, Chris, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, first time caller here.
Welcome, Chris.
I just wanted to say that I wanted to give my input on the debate last night. I think J.D. Vance was absolutely fantastic. I disagree slightly with their wife, which is unusual for me, but I think maybe he should have pushed a little harder. But at the same time, I don't, because he's going to get the hate saying that they're going to spin it in some way, shape, or form. I think the respect and the way he articulated his debate against Waltz was fantastic. And I don't know if Waltz has been sniffing too much of that the burning tires in Minneapolis or not, but telling the world that you're friends with all the school shooters isn't a good look. So I think Vance did great.
Well, Chris, I think the other thing, and I agree with you completely, is, look, I understand where Arthur is coming from. I understand where my wife obviously is coming from. I get it. But, Chris, I think, look, how do I say this? Just because J.D. Vance made it look easy, it's like an NFL quarterback or Tom Brady, it doesn't mean that it's easy. It was 3-on-1. So, look at it from the guy's point of view. You're going into Lion's Den. It's a high-pressure debate. You've got two moderators that are cutting you off, attacking you, trying to trip you up every step of the way, and you've got to deal with an opponent. And, you're defending not yourself, but your boss, right? You're there to defend Trump primarily and go after Kamala. So he had so much on his plate. That, to me, when it's 3-on-1 and you beat all three of them and you do it in the class, the composure, the brilliance that JD showed last night, to me, you got to tip your hat off to the guy. Now, I agree. Look, honestly, Chris, I'm not waffling. I'm being perfectly frank. If this was 1-on-1, if this was a fair debate, I think everything that Grace and Arthur wanted him to bring up, he would bring up. But the guy's under constant pressure because the moderators are breathing down his neck. So I know, because I've been in these kind of debates. And afterwards you go, I could have brought that up. I should have brought that up. Well, you're in the thick of the moment. It's stress, it's pressure, you're dealing with multiple factors. So honestly, Chris, he had a very almost impossible task. And he did it. He did it. And I think, to be honest with you, he has set Trump up now for a beautiful victory in November. Final word to you, Chris.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. I think he did great, and he was quick with his answers, and all his answers were everything. I was caught off guard a few times, because when they tried to get him on how he used to say this and that about Trump, and he came, I thought he was finished there, and he came in and he had an answer for that right off the bat.
It was a master class. I agree, Chris, completely. Thank you for that call. Look, super quick, because I want to squeeze in Mike. think of an NFL quarterback. Well, he's under constant pressure, right? They're trying to sack him. You've got defensive linemen breathing down the person's neck. You've got blitzes coming after you. So, it's easy to say, oh, I should have passed there. He should have done this. Yeah, if he had no pressure, if they weren't breathing down his neck and trying to take his head off and he had a few more seconds, yeah. But what I'm saying is it was the same thing with Vance. He was a quarterback under pressure, 3-on-1. And it was completion after completion after completion. So I think, honestly, people are being a little hard on the guy. Okay, Mike in Brighton, I hate to do this to you. 30 seconds, go.
All right, I agree with your wife, Grace, in the fact that there's expedience in red meat that could have been brought out in this, but the reality is the liarators, as I like to call them, we're going to interrupt him like they did Trump. JD didn't take the bait.
No, he didn't. And he was cool, calm, and composed. And when he turned it around on the moderators and called them out for lying in the name of fact-checking, that's when he really took the debate over. It was 3-on-1, and JD won. Bye-bye.